And welcome everyone, Friar Tuck here. This is my epoch, and I bet you're wondering, how do I deal with beggars? And so that's going to be the question that I ask, or that I answer in today's video. However, I need to give there's both sides. Just like with my dog Sam, there are people that like dogs and then there are people that don't like dogs. And depending upon who I'm coming across is how I have to interact with Sam, because if somebody likes dogs, I'm not allowed to even discipline her or reprimand her or anything without having to deal with a huge tirade, versus people who don't like dogs. The second Sam steps out of line, they're yelling and screaming at me, telling me how I'm a poor owner and that I need to get my dog taken care of. So for me, it's a catch-22, and for a homeless person that may be standing there on a corner, it's also a catch-22. So let's kind of split this off into two different segments. The first segment, what we're going to talk about, is those people, just like the people that don't like Sam because they just don't like dogs. We're going to talk about the people that don't like homeless, and how to, if you're one of those people, how can you deal with a person who is begging without being a complete douchebag. Regardless of how you feel, you're still a human being. You're still an American. You're still a civilized human being, which means you have a certain decorum and a certain way in which you conduct yourself within society. At least that's the way it used to be. Now people are just loose cannons and they're just going off on people. You get people yelling at you in your face all the time. But let's just say that you have that you still have some manners left in you, and that you are still a decent human being, like a majority of Americans to begin with. When you see a homeless person, or when you see somebody begging for change, there's many different ways. You have people that will come up to you at a gas station holding a gas can saying, I need help. But do they really need help? Sometimes no, sometimes yes. This is why it's very important to start asking questions, because here's the thing. I know that those of you who dislike the homeless or look at homeless as lazy beggars and they don't really want to do things, you want them to go get a job, you may be looking at them in that way. I still think that there's a soft spot for you, or for the homeless within you, because people, regardless of where they're at, if a person is doing the right thing, regardless of how you feel about them in their situation, you're going to stand up and you're going to back them. But in order for you to be able to do that, what that requires from you is to be able to have a conversation and get to know that person. Whether it's taking 5 minutes to get to know the person and help them out, or getting to know them over time because you see them as regular, and they may still be a decent human being. Because here's the reality of the situation. Since the pandemic, we've lost 50% of our small businesses. I'm one of them. I've got many subscribers. Also, within the last year, they've started doing mass layoffs, especially white-collar jobs. There's a lot of ghost jobs out there. There's a lot of different obstacles out there. I just read a whole string of comments where one person said, I've been putting in 100 applications a week and I'm not getting anywhere. And then you have a bunch of people right under them going, I'm doing the same thing. I'm having the same problem. So although out there in the public, and a lot of this is an illusion that's being given to us by our leaders and our mass media to keep us docile and to keep us from having civil unrest. But the reality is that there's really not a lot of jobs out there. And just like in 2008, you're going to have people that have doctorate's degrees applying for jobs at McDonald's and getting turned down, not because they're not a good worker, but because they're overqualified. So just because you have all of these skills does not necessarily mean that you're qualified for the job, because when an employer looks at you, they are looking at you going, well, yeah, you got a doctorate degree. I can't pay you what you're worth, and I have enough respect for you as a skilled laborer that, yeah, I'm not gonna hire you. I'm gonna hire somebody that really doesn't have any skills and needs a job, and so therefore you're gonna be pushed out. So when you're looking at these homeless, and when you're looking at people, it's not like it used to be in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where it was majority of either homeless veterans that came back from Vietnam with drug addictions, or the hippies coming out of the hippie revolution with different drug addictions, just because they played too hard during that era. Well, a lot of that has died out, and you have all new forms of drug addicts. Like as of recently, you have the ADHD epidemic. So a whole generation. So we look at these millennials and we go, man, they're all junkies, they're all meth heads and stuff like that. But we forget to realize that this was done to them, to a whole generation of children, by the pharmaceutical industry, because they wanted profit. Because here's the thing. A parent would, or a teacher would complain and says, your little boy is not is not sitting still, so on and so forth in class, you may need to take him to a doctor. You take him to the doctor, and say, doctor, he's not sitting down. Doctor says, well, here, I got a pill for that, and whatever kickbacks or whatever deal he has with the pharmaceutical company, and he may not even be allowed to publicly state it, just because of the PR that goes along with it. But there is something that goes on behind the scenes, because these doctors, instead of trying to help you find homeopathic remedies, they're too busy cramming pharmaceuticals down your throat. But a lot of that also has to do with the education system. So what these doctors did in order to pacify the parents is they just gave them they gave them Ritalin and Adderall, which is pharmaceutical grade methamphetamine. So you had a whole generation, like 80 to 90% of all these kids that were diagnosed with ADD and ADHD were not ADD or ADHD. It's just that the system wanted them to sit down, shut up, be quiet, and listen. And so since they wouldn't do it, they gave them a pill, therefore creating a whole generation of drug addicts. So when you sit there and you look at a homeless person, you go, hey, look, there's drug addicts. Well, you got to understand that there's a lot more that is playing into it. And, some of it is the responsibility of society, and some of it is the responsibility of the individual. But again, the reason why I tell you all this is because you need to be able to step back and realize that just because you may think they're a drug addict, just because you may think that they are one thing, or that they made bad choices in life and things like that, right now, as we're going through an economic collapse, a lot of that stuff goes out the door. You're having everyday Joes that are losing their jobs. They're not lazy human beings. They're very productive. And the psychological toll that it takes on an individual not being able to provide for themselves when they've been able to provide for themselves for a long period of time, for most, or if not all of their life, and then to take that away from them. Like, imagine if you were in that same situation. How detrimental would it be to you and how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself, and your self-worth and self-value, if you were no longer able to work, not through no fault of your own, but because the whole world's falling apart due to mismanagement by the very people we put in power to manage the very systems that are critical to our very survival as a nation. So again, if you are on the side of, I do not like homeless, they're all a bunch of lazy bums, you're thinking like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That doesn't apply anymore. Since 2001, as a nation, we've been falling apart, and now it's its final days. Okay, now let's talk about, for those of you that sympathize with the homeless, I'm going to tell you a lot of the same thing, because the thing is a homeless, when you're dealing with a homeless person and you're dealing with a beggar, and you're wanting to know how best to be able to deal with them. Again, get to know them. Because if you really want to help the homeless person, you have to know what their needs are, what it is that they're trying to do. So for example, I've got a GoFundMe going on right now. It's down in the description, so that I can transition from living on trail and living urban homeless, so that me and my dog can have some form of roof over our head and stability as I continue to work on this YouTube channel, to build it to a point where it gives me a sustainable income, so that I can afford all the things that I need to afford for myself without having to rely on external sources, like I have been for the last couple of years. But I've been playing the long game, and I understand what's going on, so on and so forth. But what would be really nice is if somebody sat back and talked to me and says, I know a guy that's got a van, we can work something out, get you in that van, da 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 da. You know what? Do I need money? Do I need the $6,000? No. What I'm trying to accomplish is I'm trying to get the van. But if I can't have somebody that will pass the van down to me, then I need to be able to have the money to be able to afford the van. So when you're sitting back and you're getting to know your homeless person, it's understanding their situation, where they're trying to go, what they're trying to do, and is it going to be productive? Is it going to be a positive situation for them? Is it going to improve their situation, or are you just giving them sustenance? Because the thing is, most of these NGOs and these not-for-profits, they sustain us. Okay, they allow us to live from day to day, but never give us anything more. The Joe and Schmo that we interact with, we're relying on you to help us not only position ourselves, but put ourselves in the right place to be able to move to that next stage to improve our life. But so many people are either looking down on us, because they think that we're lazy bums. And then the other half is looking at us as, you poor wretched soul, let me help you, I feel sorry for you. And neither one of those are good or healthy or help a homeless person at all. Because like if you really have some compassion and you really have want to be able to make a positive impact within your community, within the homelessness, the homeless population that resides in your area. It requires that you take a thoughtful, well-rounded approach. One of the best examples I have from that is one of my subscribers, Alfred. Alfred, he will listen to what I have to say and then randomly, here you go. And because he's listening to me and he's being thoughtful about what it is and the things in which he's given me, him and a couple other people have given me, are a huge improvement on my life, such as getting the solar panels from Jeremy. That right there gave me the necessary tools that I needed so that I could continue working on my YouTube channel. Which would be better, giving me a $60 a $60 solar panel that allows me to continue my work on YouTube uninterrupted without being completely dependent on a city and a plug, or would $100 benefit me? Which would benefit me more? In the reality of the situation, the solar panels are going to benefit me more because it goes along the way, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life. Now, I may not be being taught to fish, but what is happening is I'm being given the necessary tools so that I can fish for myself, so that there's less of a reliance on individuals. This is why it's so important for you to get to know your homeless person, understand what their true needs are, and how you can make an actual impact. And it doesn't necessarily take money. It takes thought, it takes care, it takes compassion, it takes humanity to be able to, as the Christians say, see the sinner, not the sin. Like the sinner, not the sin. Who cares if they're a drug addict? Okay, great. That is an end result. Now, how do we, by having compassion and caring for your fellow human being without browbeating them or forcing them to do something, because if you force somebody to do something, it will never stick. It is nothing. Forcing somebody to do something is nothing more than a temporary solution. And as soon as you turn your back, boom, they're gone. Sam does the same thing. I force her to stay close. As soon as I turn my head, gone. And then I got to go get her. If you force somebody to do something that they don't want to do, then it's not going to turn out well. So how do you help somebody go from a point of being a drug addict to actually wanting to be able to be sober, and things like that? Well, it comes from having compassion, getting to know that person, my buddy Puckett, because I cared for him so much. And I reminded him that, not everybody's going to be here to help you. Because I was able to really get through to him, because we had one of those moments where basically I had to carry him back to a guard shack so that we could have an ambulance called and they could show up at the shelter and get him. And he got pneumonia and something to do with his diabetes, like a coma or something like that. He fell out. I had to carry him about a half a mile or so all the way back to the shelter so that we could get some medical care for him, because he passed out. But because I did that, and that created a bond, because for the first time in his life, I was the first person to show him any compassion, any care, any regard that he was still alive and existed. So when I tell him, you know what, I don't care that you do the drug, you're gonna do it, but what you should do is start, do a little bit less so that you can get sleep. You've got health issues, and if you don't take care of yourself, when you finally get to that point when you're done, then you're gonna wish that you took better care of yourself. So start taking better care of yourself. Eat better, sleep better. Do all the dope you want, but make sure you stop a little bit early so that you can get some sleep. Sleep more. Your body's going to need it. Your body needs to repair. And when I came back a year later, guess what? He was no longer diabetic. He lost a lot of weight. He was eating better. He was sleeping better. And he was actually going through a process because he was ready to get off of the dope. And he just had to do like his last ditch thing, which is, for some, just go to jail, because that might be the only way that you can clean up, because you're forced to for a split moment. And then when you get out, you just got to remind yourself, no, I can't do that. Okay. So you guys know how to help the channel. Like, subscribe, share, become I'm supported by crowdfunding. So if you If you come over to Patreon, either get a free membership or one of the paid memberships, that helps me, or even the ones over here on YouTube. All right, everything else is down in the description. Thanks for helping. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.